Oh, you're just jealous. Oh, you're just jealous. Oh, you're just jealous. Oh, you're just jealous. Oh, you're just jealous because we're the Big G Boys.
Yeah.
Oh, you're just jealous. Oh, you're just jealous. Oh,
So
you're
jealous.
jealous. Oh, you're just jealous. Oh, you're
How jealous, really, though?
Oh, you're just jealous 'cause we're the
So
Big
jealous.
G Boys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right, we're here for a special podcast today, boys and girls. A special podcast today. We got an extra guest. I'm Adam, a.k.a. Whirlin' the Mage. We have Shifty McLewis, a.k.a. Sean, and we have John Zweehander as our special guest today. John's an old buddy of ours. He's played plenty of Diablo 2, and we're just going to have a lot of throwback chatting about Diablo 2, because obviously Diablo 2 Resurrected is coming out, the remaster that I'm probably going to play most of my time this year.
The rest of this year. When it
Yeah,
comes out.
basically, as soon as it comes out September 23rd, I'm on it. So why not kick back, talk about some Diablo 2 and some of our fondest memories. But for those who haven't played Diablo 2, obviously it's a sequel to the original Diablo. Now, the original plan for Diablo 2, it was supposed to come out in 1997. Development time took about 3 years, and I did read that they did like a year and a half of straight crunch trying to get it out on time. So it's pretty interesting. It didn't actually release until June 29th of 2000, which we're almost coming up on the 21st anniversary of, which is kind of wild when you think about it. But overall, Diablo 2 is an action RPG. It's mostly hack and slash. It's a dungeon crawler, and they break it down into 4 separate acts, so there's actual story that you absorb from it. There was 5 major classes of characters. You have the Amazon, the Necromancer, the Barbarian, the Sorceress, and the Paladin, each one with their own special little abilities. But, you know, everyone really picked the Barbarian or Necromancer, one or the other, or Sorceress. But hey, you know what I'm saying? So later on, they added the DLC Lord of Destruction 2001. They added the Druid and the Assassin. But we're not really going to talk about that today. We're really going to get into some Diablo 2 action. And Sean, why don't you kick it off with our most beloved memory, or your most beloved memory of Diablo 2 from back in the days?
I feel like it was the one game that we had a large selection of friends playing it. Like, we had some MMOs that would come out at times, but Diablo 2 was one that even if you weren't an MMO guy, you got to play with this, and it was a weird structure in how this kicked off, because we were doing single player, which allowed for open BattleNet, if you remember, where open BattleNet,
good old BattleNet,
your single player characters and just play multiplayer.
Did they discontinue BattleNet?
No, of course not.
That's still going?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, what games are on BattleNet? Not to derail everything.
Still Diablo 2.
Get out.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, there's like seasons of stuff. They do ladder resets. I'm in a few communities following this, and yeah, there's it's still
on it.
A good swing. But and then we had to switch to closed BattleNet after a while, which was basically you had to log into your account, and Blizzard would let you like keep your stuff almost like on the cloud. So it prevented people from like putting all their hack stuff in. Like, that was a big problem. People coming in with like these hacked characters.
Well, there was a dupe problem, right? Was that Diablo 1 or 2 where there was a duping gold issue?
More so 1, but 2 was people hacking like with these crazy Uber items and godly characters. So you'd like come in for a PvP session and get like slaughtered, and it's like, all right, this is absurd. So I just like the fact that like that's my fondest memory, is really just playing with friends, like a lot of friends, and you could just have a group of 8, and it wasn't always the same group. So very cool.
So what about you, John? What was your fondest memory of the early beginnings of Diablo 2 action?
Oh, I have many, many fond memories of Diablo. But first off, thank you guys very much for having me on the VG Boys and making me an honorary VG. Can I be an honorary VG boy for today?
You're one for the day, brother.
Just for the day. Okay, good. So first off, as far as Diablo goes, there's so many games out there now that you say it's like Diablo. There might be a game, it's an action RPG, and you might be like, oh, it's like a Diablo clone. But it's so interesting because Diablo is not the first of its kind. I'm sure there's some other game. Like, you can't say Doom was the first first-person shooter. You don't know. It could have been something else. Who knows what the first one was? But
Wolfenstein 3D.
Yeah, but you always compare it to Diablo. So what that means is Diablo kind of took over that role. That it created its own genre. And so many games Titan Quest, Torchlight, Path of Exile. You're always going to compare them to Diablo. So I think that is so interesting, that what it spawned and what it became. But as far as memories go, I have 3 I want to mention. 3 quick memories of Diablo.
Go for it.
The first one. Now, Adam, I hate to call you out on your own show.
Yikes.
Which I'm about to do. So we used to play this game back in high school, and I remember talking to you specifically about Diablo, and I was like, yeah, Diablo. I don't remember what I was saying. And then I remember you specifically said, I don't like Diablo because it's too clicky. Those are your exact words.
Oh, the first one, yeah.
You said it was too clicky, and I was like, what does that even mean? But you were kind of right, because to move, you have to click. To attack, you have to click. Everything you want to do, you're just using
You basically
the mouse.
need to acquire carpal tunnel syndrome to
It's a one-handed game. It's a one-handed game, which also we could talk about as, a bane and a boon or whatever it is. But anyway, so my favorite memory was I don't think I had a computer strong enough to play Diablo 2 when it first came out. I don't
Remember
think
when that was such an issue in general?
was so
Like,
problem.
if your rig did not handle it, you're screwed. That's it. You're not playing.
Yeah.
Sorry, boys.
I remember your computer dying, John. Like, I remember that day. When
Yeah.
all of a sudden it was like, it made a sound and like
And that
dust
was it.
came out.
And we held a funeral.
No, I
we
probably
said our
should-
parting words. Yeah, it was,
I probably should have looked this up. But, like, what were the capabilities, right? Like, the system requirements for Diablo 2, I'm sure were, like, real low. Like, you could probably get away with, like, one of those 266 megahertz rigs with, like, with, like, a decent graphics card. I mean, it's still like that, you know? If your graphics card is a dog, then you're not really experiencing the game like you should.
Oh,
right.
man.
So, my computer wasn't strong enough, but I had a friend, David. You guys remember it?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh yeah, this was his drug, man.
Oh,
I remember he would
absolutely.
just go to the like character selection screen and keep clicking on the barbarian, and he would just go, "Ho!" Remember that? And like you click on each one of the characters, and it would do a little like, "Hello, it's me, the effing sorceress," or what have you.
Yeah. And I remember, Sean, you were there too, and we went to David's, and he was like, polling us. He was like, "What's your goal tonight?" Because we're having a sleepover, and he's like, "What's your goal?" And he went to Sean, and Sean's like, "My goal is I want to get this far," and he's like, "My goal is this," and he's like, "John, what's your goal?" And I was like, "I want to get Meteor with the Sorceress," which
Right.
I did not make that goal. Which, if you've played Diablo 2, it's very far down the tree.
Yeah.
Plus, with 3 people
I want to make
taking
Meteor
turns.
with sorceress in like 3 months.
Yeah,
if we
I
play
mean,
every day.
3 people taking turns, we didn't make it, even without sleep. But anyway, we wanted David to copy the game so we could play it, because he owned it, we did not.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't copy it.
He had a good rig too, speaking of which, but go ahead.
Yeah, but he wouldn't copy the CD. I think he was just really against pirating, or he just wanted to be unique. That he was.
Oh, he
the only
wasn't
one that
against
had it.
pirating.
I
don't
think
know.
it was more so that one.
Yeah, maybe he liked the company of us coming there and watching him play. I don't know.
He was
But,
just flexing his rig. That's what it was.
Would not
Which, hey,
copy the
that-
CD.
yeah, that's fine.
Do you
like,
guys
it's
understand
okay.
what ultra settings means? Max settings? Do you know
Yeah.
what's up?
Yeah, so he wouldn't let us copy it. So what me and Sean did was we really wanted the game, and what do you do? What do you do in this situation? And we did what anyone else would do. We waited till he fell asleep, and we opened up the CD burner, and we copied his
Hey, there
Oh,
you
man.
go.
I remember
The
this
CD
day.
burner, baby.
It was fun because I think I had the air mattress that would deflate by morning, so you had an alarm clock built in.
right?
But he
You
was
were on the
asleep,
floor?
and I remember he could sleep sort of with his eyes open a little bit.
Yeah, creepy shit.
So the whole time you're like, "Is he awake? Like, are we getting caught right now?" And
He
it's
thought
like
he
every-
was watching you.
but he was out cold.
It's like a weekend at Bernie's situation.
Ah, man, it was so funny. Yeah, I remember that. It was like, yep. And it was like 2 discs, so you had to like do one. It took like an hour. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, one more.
but we did it.
But you needed
Yeah.
an all-powerful CD key.
You
That's
did.
right. That's right.
But
well, we
for
used
single
it.
player, yeah.
We used it, and for single player, it was okay.
Mhm.
You just couldn't.
And that's
play
all we
online.
wanted, because you could just later install your own and use the save file, and you were fine. But I totally remember that.
Oh man, that's some teenage shoestring budget stuff right there.
It really was.
Oh man. But yeah, I remember those days well, man. And we put many, many, many hours and lots of effort into just completing the game in general, you know?
Yeah,
And
I feel like, do you remember what your first character that you made was? Because I definitely did Barbarian as my first one. I know for sure.
Well, Barbarian was a
first.
good one. I think I went Paladin by memory because, you know, Dave was always the freaking Barbarian and someone had to be like the long range guy. So I feel like nobody really wanted to be the Amazon. And I feel like that might be one of the first ones I use when I play Resurrected because, you know, I have no real memory of putting time into an Amazon character. And you had the stupid Herodric Cube, and you use that to improve your items. What did it do? It like combined the items, or you can combine crystals or something to make a better crystal to improve an item even more so.
Yeah, like it was like the chipped, flawed, regular. I forget what the higher one is.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's like 3 chipped equals a flawed. And John, you were a sorceress first, though, right? That was your first.
And for good reason. So, you guys recently played Diablo 1, am I right?
Oh yes.
You guys did a whole video on that. Now, my question: when you guys played Diablo 1, what class did you play at?
Adam did wizard, and I did warrior.
Yeah. So we had one short range, one long range. That was the idea behind it. So,
in Diablo 1, which is very good, it needed some improvements, but the sorcerer was so powerful with this chain lightning. Once you had chain lightning, you just right clicked and everything on the screen died.
And you mow.
It was really good, and it was awesome. Now with the warrior, you have to walk up to each guy and click on him until he goes away. It's for time purposes. The sorcerer was so good. So I had that mentality going into number 2. Going into number 2, I remember the sorcerer being so strong that I was like, the sorceress is probably the equivalent. But I think all the characters have their own pluses and minuses. So I don't think the sorceress was the end-all, be-all class, which was such a cool thing about Diablo 2, is that all of them were very...
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I remember using the Barbarian plenty, and then you could do the cool, like, upgrades to it where you do get a little bit more range out of him. So it's a lot less of, like, him getting ganked and everyone trying to save the Barbarian the whole time.
Well, he was very item dependent. At a certain point, like you can go through for a while, but because he's getting everyone's face, he is taking like the magic and the.
He's taking the brunt. Yeah, you got to get that heavy armor going.
I did like that he had like all the weapons he pretty much had access to, which was kind of cool, and they give you masteries as a barbarian for all of them. I liked the. I remember Leap was the one that I thought was going to be like the best, where like you can like jump things because they had teleport. And every other character really didn't have that. So this was like his own thing. But like I don't know if they changed it, but I remember the original one was if you had to put each point into leap, made it slightly farther. So you needed to like put like 20 points to have a big leap. And then like later it was found out that if you had 1 point to leap attack, if you just clicked somewhere far away, he'd like infinite leap. That was like
I don't remember that. That's great.
I wasted so many points.
Pretty much, you put 40 points into leap, and you become Superman. And you start flying around the map. You don't even touch the ground anymore. You just fly.
But
it's so silly when you think about it, because even in like when we played 3 recently, like all those like you get the roll, right? So that's super helpful. You don't even need the leap then. You know, back in the days, like the leap was important if you're taking on all the enemies and you're like the character like the barbarian who would just take the brunt. You sort of needed the leap a little bit more,
or
rather than now
get to where you wanted to go. Because if you had like
jumping
those
over
weird
rivers,
that was what I really was more relying on, because you had to find a bridge, whereas the sorcerers could just teleport. Like teleport's the best thing there is, and that's what the first one had. So the second one, it was like a character with something else.
Now jog my memory, because I didn't write this down. I don't recall, because I haven't played Diablo 2 since probably around the time we're talking about, maybe some years later. But now, how the hell do you deal with situations where you die? Do you lose everything? I don't remember.
You dropped, I think it was half.
Like, do you have to go back to your corpse and get your stuff? You did, right? I'm pretty certain.
All of your gear, all of your gear wasn't on the floor. It wasn't on your person. So you would have to run back to your body naked and then once you clicked on your body, it re-equipped
It re-equips your whole thing, yes.
But
But
if
you do have to
someone
click the
else-
body, though.
Yes, it's not, but it's not like your pieces. It's not like your helmet's
Right.
on the floor
Yeah.
and your boots. And
Oh,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
one piece. That
It's
you
not like
click on.
Ultima Online, in other words.
No. I remember when the game first came out, it was a lot more punishing because if you say put on other gear to go fight to get to your body and then died, that new gear became your now new corpse, and you lost your original stuff, and it was like
Brutal.
heartbreaking. Yeah, like because you'd be like, all right, I'll just do this and find over, and no, that body's gone now, and you have this garbage equipment now. So I remember doing that once, and like it was never again. But I think if you quit out of the game and just rejoined, your body would appear in town. And I remember there was the original game was honestly, it was like its own set of fun, like as far as like the Ultima Online days of like people like tricking people for trading and stuff. Like it was the Wild West of whatever. Like the amount of tricks people had when trading and stuff like that. Like even in town, the things you could do. Like I remember they had like Luca Lane. There was like that bar. And if you had someone where it's like, all right, I'm going to trade an item for an item, and like the trade window, I guess, wasn't reliant, which it totally was. It was just people like trying to mess with you.
It seemed
If you dropped
unnecessary.
it-
I mean, if you're just playing with another person, even two other people, you could drop something to the floor and they could pick it up, right? I mean,
Well, the whole thing would be if you drop it there and you're a bit of a distance away and you drop it there, the idea is that you're supposed to be able to like run to each other's item and get it. But if you were like in this bar specifically and you dropped it on the inside, the person on the outside can pick it up through the wall and get their thing and like
right.
got both. So it's very fun watching like these old stories of people getting like tricked, and it's like, well, I learned a lesson today.
So check this out. I wrote down a few juicy tidbits for you guys. Remember we talked about, like, I just want people to understand, like, how big this game actually was, right? So,
Sure.
like, yes, there was console gaming and PC gaming was a separate deal. But check this out. In the first day on release, they sold 180,000 copies of this
Yeah, I
game.
believe that.
Day one.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of 2 weeks, they hit 1 million.
That's pretty good.
And that turns out that it's a Guinness Book of World Records record for fastest selling computer game ever sold at the time,
Wow.
to hit that
believe it.
million in 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. Easily.
Yeah, I believe it.
That's a big
I
deal.
do believe it. I think we had initially a trouble finding it when it first came out. Like I think Amazon was still relatively new. And
What was the
like,
price
you
point then? You remember? Was it $60?
Yeah, it was probably 60. That sounds about right. I don't think it was any cheaper than that. Like maybe 50 and change if you like had a store with like a thing. Remember we had that like garbage computer renaissance over in the shopping center near me?
Yep.
Do you remember that? That's where I ended up picking mine up like a few days after I think
no way.
David had his, because the store just happened to have it and it was like, okay, I'm buying it.
Computer
We're playing it.
Renaissance. That sort of brings
Yeah.
me back. Like, how many good game stores were there back in the day? They had EB Games.
Electronic
Holy
Boutique.
smokes. Yeah, at Circuit City. You can go to,
Toys.
like, the computer store and get all kinds of games, too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, that was dope. There was no digital delivery then, though. Like, the 56K connection. No, they had, wait, Diablo 2, I remember
had
Dave had
cable
cable
modems, yeah.
modems at that point.
Yeah, it was just coming out around that time.
Yeah.
Because I definitely had it by
So
the time Diablo 2
2000,
came out,
yes.
It was new.
Because I remember we started playing Ultima, what was it, 97, let's call it? 90, yeah, around 97, 98.
With
And I
dial-up.
remember, yeah, that was dial-up. We literally
Sure
had to
was.
go on AOL and then Mom would pick up the phone, hello? Then you'd get kicked off the goddamn game.
Yeah.
Kids
Well,
today
John, I
will
used to
never
do that
know,
with,
bro. We're part of that weird
Diablo.
generation of
We
gaming.
used to do that with Diablo. Remember that, John? You had your
You had to
separate
dial in from
Yeah.
a fax machine.
If you had 28.8, you were done. There was no
But
enjoyment
was-
whatsoever.
I think I talked about it on the Diablo 1 podcast where like I'd be at home in the morning and I'd hear that phone ring and I knew John was about to connect to my game.
The computer would go
Like the two of us up
like a
at,
fax
8 a.m.
machine?
on a Saturday morning. Like, yep, we're playing Diablo right now.
Oh
right.
no,
That's right.
dude. So John, you were listing 3 things before. Did you hit all 3 of those?
I did.
Okay, cool.
It was You saying the game was clicky?
Oh my
Games
god,
House and Meteor.
dude! Between you and Sean, good memory, man. Because there's so much stuff in my brain that I just do not recall until he's like, "Yo, remember this?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, I do now." You know, and it's weird.
Sure don't.
Like I don't have that like recall. Like, yes, back in 1997, we went here at this time. Remember, you idiot? No, I fucking don't. Oh god.
It's coming back a little.
Holy smokes. But yeah, so back to the tidbits I was talking about. So the sales, insane. This was the most popular computer game probably ever for quite a while, honestly, into the early 2000s for sure. Until probably like, what, Halo hit? The original Halo when Xbox came out?
Like it became
it's not PC, but still, that's insanity.
Because that was like its own, like, you know, hype as far as that. Like this was, people loved Diablo, were expecting something else, and then as it was getting closer to the time, they were revealing, like, even on Blizzard's website, they were revealing more and more about, like, now it was skill points, and that was not a thing that you had. All you had was stats. Now they're adding stats plus skills, plus more than just 3 characters with a barbarian. Like, they had, like, it was, like, specified. Like, I remember that being a big one, because it was very, like, general. Like, a warrior, a rogue, and a wizard. Like, 3 very basic sounding. Now, these are, like, you know, paladin, a sorceress, not just like a random wizard.
Right.
Very, very cool as far as that. I remember that being like a big thing. Like we'd be going on, like every time they would release a new set of skills, we would just be on the computer like, oh my god, I can't wait.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, man. It's spooky to like get older. And then you talk about a game like this, it's 20 years ago. And it seems like yesterday, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm aging by the second. But going back to the tidbits, I have more for you guys. Ready? So in 2005, 5 years after release, PC Gamer had a list of 50 greatest games of all time, and this came in at 16, which I thought was pretty good. Only 5 years after release of all time. I maybe put it a little higher, but personally, but of all time, I think that's pretty good. And IGN voted in, let's see, voted D2 a top 10 RPG of all time. And that was like a 2012 list. So top 10 RPG of all time, I don't know, man. Like, this is an action RPG. You know, some people will list a bunch of JRPGs and be like, oh, well, what about Final Fantasy series? What about, you know, all the other different ones that are out there? You know, all the PS1 beauties.
True. I mean, this, I think the popularity of it and the fact that so many people got behind it, but there was also a story. So like the RPG aspect does work because the whole time is you're following the Dark Wanderer.
Oh, it's definitely an RPG. You're being basically one of these characters.
Because they kind of like set it in stone where like in the Diablo 1, it was one of the 3 stop Diablo and put the soul stone in his head.
Yeah.
But they, you know, basically made it seem that it's the warrior, and they retconned them as King Learic's son, Aiden.
That's right.
That was a weird retcon thing. I think in Diablo 3 they may have like completely justified that, but and I remember like they made the rogue was Blood Raven that you fight in Act 1. That was who she became. As far as that, she was like corrupted by Andariel, and that was like the hero from the first game is now a boss kind of early on in this, and the wizard becomes the summoner in Act 2. Like that's who those characters go to. So it's like cool that they have like.
It is interesting with this series, like we talked about. I mean, they do take some of the original characters from 1 even, and then keep them in even 3. Yeah. They revisited, and it's going to be interesting what happens to 4, because who's really making 4? I know Blizzard's like a different entity now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
Like Blizzard back in the day was like known for quality. Like you knew. Like, you're not going to get a Cyberpunk out of Blizzard. Like, especially back then. You know what I mean? There's not going to be like, there's a highly anticipated, even if they're cramming or crunching, whatever you want to say. They're not going to release something and not have it be super polished.
Just look at StarCraft Ghost. That never happened.
There you go. That's one example. But how good was StarCraft? How good was StarCraft 2? How good was the OG World of Warcraft? I mean, I never got into it because I sort of got sour to those like pay monthly games.
Sure.
Those MMORPGs, like I'm like, I did it with UO, and like I sort of learned my lesson that I refused to pay by the month for these damn things. For me, I like an upfront, and then you're not gonna really get free online unless you're playing PC. Like if you're playing one of these services like PlayStation or Xbox, you always have something that's a subscription service, so it's sort of built in now.
Even Nintendo at this point, the Switch, you have the
Yeah.
Nintendo Online,
with a good price point too, but that's another thing. But let's
So,
jump
Adam,
into.
hang on.
Go ahead.
You said it was one of the top-rated games. How long ago was that survey from?
That was
95, you said?
IGN did a 2012 article where they talked about the
2012.
top 10 RPGs of all time, and that came in at number 6. Diablo 2 did.
Now, Diablo 2, I would say it's timeless because it's doing something unique, and I'll explain. So, if you log on to Battle.net right now, there are people playing Diablo 2.
Yep.
There are, and they have probably been playing it this whole time. They probably never stopped when it came out at Circuit City, whatever. They're still there.
RIP Circuit City.
And even someone new coming into the franchise could still enjoy it. But why? What is this game doing that is making people love it so much? And I thought about this for a while, and I think I haven't figured it out. So it's the builds. The game lets you do whatever you want. Straight up. So let's say you pick a class. Let's say you picked the Sorceress. And you put a skill point into Charged Bolt. And you're like, this is kind of cool. And then you move on, you put a skill point into Lightning or something. Oh, yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yep.
And then you put a point into Chain Lightning. You're like, this one's my favorite. This one is my favorite. I like Chain Lightning. You can now pile all of your resources, all of
boost
your
it up
into that one skill. And now you're playing a game the way you want to play it. You get that choice, that freedom of choosing any one of your moves and making it your main thing.
It's like a custom fit orthotic shoe.
And
you slip your foot in and it's made just for you.
Yeah, and then not only that, but you can create another sorceress and do a totally different skill.
Yeah, and it feels like a different playthrough.
Exactly, and you can do that with all the characters, and that alone, it gives the player this choice where it makes them feel so unique with their character. And you can even talk to someone who plays the game. They could be like, oh, what do you play? And they might say, oh, I play as a Hammerdin, where it's a build where they're using the paladin as all the hammer skills. And that's cool. That's really cool. And they don't do that anymore. Diablo 3 came out, and they did away with it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were down on Diablo 3. They were like, this is nothing like 2. And they're right, but it doesn't have to be. You know, it's okay to make a totally new game.
Yeah.
But
and sometimes it's hard to repeat success, and because they feel I'm sure the developers felt like, oh, we've done this already, or Diablo has been here already. What else can we do differently, or what can we change to make it different? But sometimes you don't want to fix the broken wheel if it's not really broken.
Right. And again, I think that's why something that people absolutely love about Diablo 2, and it's about just trying different things out and just playing the game like you want to play it.
Which I'm super looking forward to this September.
I definitely agree with the Diablo 3 thing, though, because that was like my biggest complaint was the fact that you didn't have this specified build anymore. It felt like I was making a character and you could just kind of plug and play all the things, which I guess made it a little bit easier for anyone else to go into. But I didn't like the fact that I wasn't specializing anymore. It just seemed very generic now.
Well, I think the specialization they thought was going to be exciting would be the weapons customization and crafting. But personally, I don't really even bother with the crafting. I just wait till I find something awesome and I use it, right, and improve it with gemstones.
True.
It's not something that I really got into. Like, all the gold you pick up, it's exciting to pick up gold, but what do you do with the gold? I end up holding most of it. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm not playing correctly. Maybe I'm doing something wrong.
I think they let you gamble at some point, but yeah, I like I said, I stopped playing 3 pretty early. It was it just wasn't my cup of tea. And I do watch.
It was no Diablo 2, is what you're saying.
It wasn't. It was no Diablo 2, man. It's totally true. I will say, I know Lord of Destruction, when they came out, they added the extra classes, but I don't remember if it was after that. And there was, I believe it was a certain patch that happened, not so much the expansion, but it really kind of brought new life into Diablo 2 was the patch that allowed each skill to amplify other skills. Do you remember when that came out?
The synergies.
Yeah, the synergies was tremendous because I remember like I had a few builds that were decent and it was like, okay, like this is kind of cool. Like my charge bolt sorceress. Remember that, John?
Oh yeah.
I put 20 points into this thing and I was just a shotgun basically. I would teleport in front of things and just let it loose, or I would just stand in the back and they would just be like all my charge bolts. And I love that. Was just a lot of fun for me to play. Now those really weak charge bolts individually, if I up lightning and chain lightning and stuff like that, now those become even more powerful, and it just brought out new advantages. Like I wasn't really capped where I used to have been capped with that.
It made your build more viable.
Yeah. And it did it for a lot of things. It was a very, I think that was like an ingenious idea that they brought through that I don't know if it was inspired by another game or something that was tried maybe in WoW or something like that they brought back into that. But I thought that was brilliant and I loved it. And we all went right back into playing it full swing once again when that came out.
So that brings me to a good point. Do you guys have any particular builds that you remember that you enjoyed the most or got the most enjoyment out of playing the game using a particular build? John, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's so interesting because if you have a build that you like, it's almost like the easiest thing for you to do. So, Sean, your charged bolt sorceress, it was just you just had to right click in a general direction and things started dying. It just made it easier for you. But for me, I like it to be easy. I like it to be simple and focused. So my favorite build was with the Necromancer, and your main move was Poison Nova.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. So that's all you did. All day long, you just did Poison Nova. To make it stronger, you put 20 points into Poison Dagger, 20 points into Poison Explosion. Now it's at its strongest. Now, what if you're running through the world of Tristram, or wherever you're running through in Diablo, and somebody is poison immune? So at that point, what do? You just uninstall the game? No. So the Necromancer had a curse that would lower enemies' weaknesses to magic.
Right.
And if you cursed someone who was immune, they now became vulnerable to it. So that allowed me to just do Poison Nova all day, and if someone was immune to it, you curse them, and you just keep going, and it was just easy. You just running and
definitely does add a new dynamic. Yeah. You know what I mean?
But that was what I enjoyed doing. It was very fun. It was very strong, and that was probably my favorite build. And when the new one comes out, I'll probably run that again first.
Yeah. How about you, Adam? You had a particular
Ride it out.
build that you like?
I didn't have a particular favorite build, but I think it was kind of cool. I know David cornered the market on the, what do you call it? The
he was the
Necromancer.
For a while.
Yes,
that was
yes.
definitely his starting.
So
thing.
I sort of let him have that, but the Paladin was sort of my thing. I flipped between the Paladin, Little Sorceress, but mostly it was Paladin, Barbarian. And again, the poor Amazon was just left in the dirt. But I didn't have any particular favorite builds because I didn't really care so much about the player versus player aspect of it. I was always like, okay, let's run through the story. Let's try to get the best weapons and see where we get to. But I did enjoy overall the idea, like John said, of being able to build a character a specific way just so the playthrough feels different. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And just fighting all the different monsters. Now, in 3, depending upon the difficulty you play at, I know if you bump it up, it's really hard to get through some of these bosses. But, like, generally speaking, the first 1, 2, or even 3 levels, you could just mow through even the bosses. You know what I mean? Like, there's no stopping you. You're just basically doing the story of the game. So I felt like that's where 3 was lacking a bit, where 2 had more, I don't know, reason to build a character a certain way. Especially if you were playing in a group. I think that was the most important. You have to have your long range juggling as well as your short range characters have to be tough as nails, and they can't be killed so easily. So For me,
Yeah, I think
it's-
at least for the beginning, because I do Diablo 2 was like very interesting, like in the very beginning with the the amount of times, like there was always those few things that people would dread. Like Andariel always had her big poison spread, which like was very scary because everyone's health would be dropping to like no
Nothing.
bar anymore, because it doesn't kill you, but it gets you to like no health left anymore. I remember that being like always something that terrifies. But the Duriel lag. Do you remember that? You clicked that cave, and then everyone anticipated the same holding of breath is, am I going to pop in, and I'm going to be the guy he charges and kills in one shot? Because everyone experienced it. You weren't, like, he was ready to fight before your computer was, like, in the game fully.
Now, was that a game problem or an internet problem, right? I mean, we don't know.
It's a little of all three, like, because it could have been your computer, the game not loading, and the connection.
Or we could just blame Battle.net for everything.
Yeah, I don't know, but I remember that being the big one where it was like you were hoping you weren't the one that popped in to die. And usually it would I feel like when I played online, it was always the summon necro that would get it, because he'd pop in and then all his skeletons and stuff died. And you're screwed. There's no bodies to go in now at that point. You had to go through the temple to get more. Like, he was completely debilitated on that.
I thought the summon necromancer was a lot of fun, but I remember David started out as a summon necromancer.
Yep.
And again, here's another one of those memories that came up. He was playing, and then he was saying he didn't want to be a watcher. He said he was a watcher. He would just walk around and just guide these skeletons everywhere. And he's like, I don't want to be a watcher anymore. And then he started putting points into other things.
Right.
But,
Yeah, I think he started bone spearing.
I mean, that is what happens. You just res
watch,
things and then they fight for you.
Yeah, but that, I mean, it was also good at the same sense. I remember, like, it's one of those things where, like, looking at, like, I'm in the few communities, like, reading the chat on, like, what people are doing now, and it's crazy how I feel like it's completely changed, and, like, probably for the better, but just some things that we just didn't, like, focus on, because, again, this game's been out for so long that the amount of, like, you know, analysis that's gone through, where people now, for your builds, they're trying to hit FCR, which is the fast cast rate. There's like a fast cast rate max for each character class. So you need to like hit that so that you're casting your skills and abilities at like the fastest possible time. So like you need to hit those levels. You need to hit like resistance levels. And it's incredible. Like just looking at like what these people are going through, it's just like I would never have even focused on this. It was always you pump, you know, your random strength or this and that. Like people for the sorcerers don't even put points into energy anymore. They do all vitality and strength to get to whatever your minimum strength requirement for the build is, but 0 points into energy, because you should have X amount of like, you know, energy steal and or magic steal and replenish, and like
but
1 point
that's
to
a new
warmth.
development. That's a new development. So
Yeah.
that's what happens to a game when it's been around for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And also it's what happens to games when you have such ease of access to information with the internet.
True.
So that is
True,
a lot
yeah.
of maxing. Now, when we played back in the day, we weren't doing that. We were just playing
No.
it. We're having a good time. We're having
Trying
fun
stuff
with it.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just have fun with it. Now you can look up guides. You could look up what's meta and most effective tactics
true.
and stuff like
So
that.
easy.
Best builds. But still, you don't have to. Meaning,
No,
you
of
can
course
still
not.
turn the game on, still just play it and have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you really wanted to absolutely min-max your character,
You get that
yeah,
strategy guide, the Brady
Yeah, they-
Games strategy guide, the
go for
all-knowing.
it. Yeah, and that's possible. But again, back in the day, you weren't worried about that stuff.
Right.
It wasn't even a thought in your brain. You were just
Mm-hmm.
there to play, there to have fun, and you put the points wherever you felt like they should go, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah. And I did like that. That was ultimately my favorite, because you'd make a character, and I think it was also like part of the replayability was where you would like mess up your build. You know, you put points and then realize like, oh, you know what? I probably shouldn't have put so many into this particular one. And eventually, I think they let you do. I think it's like once per difficulty level, they let you do like a skill wipe now.
There was a reset. Yes.
Yeah. So they at least give you a little bit of leeway where you can kind of like make 3 resets, and then like your third one needs to be like whatever you're going for. Because I think like what worked in like normal and even maybe even nightmare might not work again in like hell difficulty. Because like if you were running like fire, I think class stuff, most fire immunes exist in like the hell level now. A lot of like, there's a lot more that you're dealing with that like you need to like change up your game, and working with the same old tactics isn't going to cut it in hell difficulty. So it's good that they give you that option to like kind of change it up a bit.
There's some interesting social elements to this game too. Not just this game, but like it's sort of being trapped in an era, like experiencing something a certain way as we grew up experiencing. But now there's like so many different elements to the gaming world. You have Twitch streaming. So like like you think about a game like this and you think about how like if they had Twitch or the bandwidth to deal with something like Twitch or any other streaming platform, like the popularity of the game would have even been tenfold. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like we weren't really watching people play games in those days. That was
we always thought about it though, right? Like
Yeah.
recording your gameplay. Like let's say
that was it. You
really
would
an
be more like really is like a highlights reel was what you really wanted to have. Like
Yep.
watch me do this cool thing or this cool thing happen.
Yeah, or like
Not
watch
so
what
much-
happened the other night that you didn't see.
Right.
That type of deal.
But not so much watch like in someone's entire playthrough of a game, because I feel like that was almost like I guess maybe that was a younger kid thing, because like when you were over a friend's house playing something and it wasn't 2-player, you were waiting for your turn.
Yeah.
You know, like that was it. Granted, I will say when this game first came out though, like over David's house, like we weren't feeling that. We were like excited to watch.
I would have
friends
no
play
problem
games.
watching gameplay.
Yeah,
of
like
this.
that was a little bit different. Like I feel like we were all, because we knew we were getting our chance, and we were also experiencing it together for the first time, and like that was part of the fun. Like we were hanging out live, and that was cool.
Now
As
nobody
opposed to,
sees
like,
each other. Like, what are you
Right,
over my house
yeah.
for, bro? We have high speed internet. What do I need to see your face?
That's right.
Probably to a detriment. That's probably not good for the kids these days. The kids got to go outside and play, or at least if they're not going to go outside and play, go outside and go to your friend's house, play a
Right.
game, and at least play together.
Yeah, hang out live. That's definitely
See other
Definitely
humans,
important.
you know. That's my PSA for the podcast. Go out to your friend's house. If you got to play games, play it with them at their house or at your house. Make it an experience rather than a playing with randos talking to some 12-year-old. You know what I mean?
yeah. You got banned now. You got banned for that. Got booted right off.
And, yeah, and PlayStation records your conversations when needed, right? They could pull that shit up in party chat. You heard about this, John? On the PlayStation Network, like
What's this?
like your party chat in PlayStation Network.
Right.
If something happens, let's say somebody reports you for being bad, for doing something terrible, or saying something terrible.
Right.
PlayStation has the ability to pull up your private party chat.
Yeah.
So if you're playing with a buddy and you go into a game and you're, saying something stupid to some underage kid and they report you, they can pull that audio. For what you think is a private chat, they could technically pull your audio and see what you said to see if so-and-so was telling the truth.
Yeah, holds of water.
If it was so bad that they feel
So
they need to
weird.
do something like that.
They have implemented that in games before but it was just text, meaning if you're typing to someone and you're
Right.
saying all kinds of trash talk, whatever, they can look at the chat log.
Yes.
And that's, I guess, if you don't want to get reported, then I guess
Don't be an asshole.
Now, I never heard about that, about the party chat, but it's the same thing. Like, if you don't want to get reported and you want to be on there, just play nice. Like, if you go to
I
a park,
agree.
if you go to a park and you're playing soccer with people in real life and you start trash talking them, well, you're now face to face with people, and you just don't do that. You don't see it happen, but you see it happen all the time on video games. But it's the same thing. It's still a community game where everyone should have good sportsmanship,
Right.
and they just don't. I feel like the internet gives these keyboard warriors like so much strength, and they feel like they can do whatever they want. And I don't know. I again, if you
Well, my only point is that it sort of walks the line of privacy, right? Like, if you
Yeah.
say something awful online, there should sort of be repercussions, but at the same time, it's like there's a disclaimer and you open yourself up to the world, you're going to meet all kinds of interesting people, right? So,
Yeah.
so I guess I don't know if I have a real point to that. It's just something that's interesting to me that, like, we're in a digital age now where, you know, they could pull your card. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you're on social media and you post something, someone who really wants to will go and dig up your shit from 10 years ago and be like, oh, well, is this you, bro? Did you say this?
Will they be able to do that on the PlayStation? Probably not. I can't imagine them having the storage capacity for everyone's stupid private conversation. But it is a matter of holding people accountable for being an asshole. Like, that's definitely the case, which is fine. Like, you should have that threat. It's like it used to be growing up. Like, you know, it's like having a conscience. Like
you can't really, you can't really talk shit anymore.
You just need to not be a jerk. Like,
but John's right. It's like the meme or like the video online where you see like two dogs like barking at each other like crazy, ready to kill each other through a fence,
and then the gate
then the gate opens, and then the dog's like, I wasn't really that aggressive. There's a, you know.
But that goes deeper. Like, even in person, if let's say you got into some kind of argument with someone at like Walmart or something, and someone pulls out a phone, starts recording you, and you know what I mean, then it's gonna be on YouTube, and you're gonna be called a Karen or whatever, you know, like it's gonna happen. Like, so you just need to be polite to everyone. Like,
that's the real PSA here. Be nice to everyone.
Yeah.
It's like the Bill and Ted. Be excellent to each other.
No, it's like, and there's a line. Like, obviously, like, people are fine with a little ribbing here and there. Like, I've seen some very hilarious
dude. Growing
comments.
up, talking shit
like,
was part of the experience.
Online,
in
like,
fighting games.
Even in Diablo, just like the amount of people that would like to, but like it would be within reason. Like, sometimes people would go over the line and be like, "All right, you're getting booted from my game because you're in my hosted account, and we don't need your kind of crap." But if someone was just like giving you a little bit of a hard time, but still playing and being interactive, like, you didn't boot that person. You kind of laughed a little, like, he just called you an idiot.
In Diablo, they had the PvP. Now, PvP is such a weird one because if it's not, if both players aren't really agreeing to it, it could almost be taken as bullying in a way. Because if you're stronger.
Dude, everything is bullying. But go ahead.
Yeah, because you could just walk up to another player and kill them. Now, what does that do? Well, it's going to waste their time in their life. You know what I mean? They have to go get their body, and they're not having a good time. They get their body back. They're alive. They die again. You know, it's spawn camping.
That's why you nerf and ruin the game for everybody else, all the adults playing.
I did love the horn that would play when they go hostile. Doo-doo! Like, it was so
alerted you.
loud.
It alerted you.
Yeah, it was, but it was really good. Like, I thought that was such a great, like, thing they did, where it could have been anything. Instead, it was like the battle cry of up. And then even better, when they would try to PvP you and they failed, was like historical. Like, I remember we had a few games like that where people would just join in and be like, you know, we're gonna like start trash talking and then PvP, and it was like, all right, well, I'm better at this than you. Your build is garbage.
But sometimes they would make a character for PvPing, and they would find other people for PvPing, and they would just go at it, which is like a whole other part of the game.
Yeah,
it's almost like a different game because in Diablo you're pretty much running and gunning, or just mowing down enemies by the hundreds, and
taking 75,000 trips to town.
But it requires a specific build. Now, if you just want to fight a player, well, you don't need that same build to fight one person. And it's a totally different build and a totally different way of playing the game, which is kind of cool. So, like, if you like PvE, go PvE. You have at it. You like PvP, or if you don't like PvP, just turn it off, and and don't play with people who want to murder you. But if you like PvP, you can find other people, and again, it's almost like a completely separate game, which is kind of cool.
I did like that when you'd have the Battle Royale PvP games that you'd join, and everyone just going at it, like, out in the wild somewhere. it was mayhem.
Usually outside
firewalls
the town
here and there, hammers flying around the screen.
Oh, man. So we're sort of running out of time. I did want to get this stuff in, obviously, about Diablo II Resurrected, so I just want to make sure everyone's ready to go, because if you've played Diablo 2 back in the day, I know you're already on this, but if you haven't tried Diablo 2, it looks clean as can be. I just want to hit you over with a few features. Obviously, it's coming out September 23rd on, like, everything. PC, PS4, PS5, Switch even, which is awesome. I'm probably going to kick off with the PS5 first. as I'm sure Sean is. But either way, few things. They updated the graphics, the lighting, the textures. They did re-render some of the cutscenes. What I thought was interesting at this point was that there's not going to be crossplay at launch, but they did say that it might be a possibility. I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. A lot of games don't have crossplay.
Even the progression isn't going to be at launch either. I heard it's should be in the works, but like you still won't be able to play switching your same account around. Like you'd have to log into that particular one.
I guess we'll have to see when it drops. They did mention some so-called quality of life changes, which is just an easier means for item identification, shared stashes, which is a big one for people, for items to be able to switch in between. You just access the same stash. And there's obviously controller support for the consoles as well as the PC. So it's going to be interesting. Looking forward to it.
Switch back and forth to the original graphics, too, if you want. They have that like on the fly.
Yeah, you could do that with the StarCraft 1 remaster that they did as well. So I guess that was a feature that people liked. So they, can see the original game, but also see the amazing new,
yeah, man,
delicious stuff they added to it. So I'm looking forward to playing it. I'd like to thank John for coming out and joining us in this podcast, sharing his memories with us.
Dude. Thanks for
Much
having me.
appreciated. We hope to see you again soon for another episode of the VG Boys. But most of all, really, just don't be jealous. You know what I'm saying?
Don't be jealous.
Take care, y'all. We'll see you next time.
Yep. Catch you on the next one.
Jealous, oh, you're just 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 jealous, cause we're the VG Boys, yeah. Oh, you're just jealous, 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 cause we're the VG Boys.